Welcome back, everybody. While everyone's been talking about the huge gains in 2024 for stocks like Nvidia and even Bitcoin, there's something else that's outperformed both of those so far this year, and by a lot. And it's an asset we've actually already talked about on this channel before, and we're going to get to that in just a second. But there's been so much market news to talk about lately that I thought we'd touch on a few different things today that have been in the headlines recently. So in this video, we're going to talk about the asset that's crushed Nvidia and Bitcoin so far in 2024, Apple partnering with Google for AI, and what does that exactly mean? Jensen Huang says that he wants you to suffer. And lastly, I'll have two quick announcements to wrap up the video. But let's start with the first one. Forget Nvidia, forget Bitcoin. The future, my friends, is cocoa.
Lofty cocoa has exceeded $9,000 for the first time ever as global supply shortages grip the market and chocolate makers grapple for beans. Yesterday alone, futures gained $700 per ton, climbing for a fourth straight day.
And if you remember, we talked about this last month when I made my decision to sell out of my Hershey position. And here's the main issues that they're dealing with and why they lowered their guidance by so much. Now, first, cocoa prices. Now, this isn't really anything new, as cocoa prices has been a big catalyst for Hershey since the middle of last year. And it's something that we've talked about multiple times on this channel already. But while cocoa prices were at 50-year highs at the beginning of January, they've only gone even higher, and now with more uncertainty than they had before. Hershey and other chocolate makers have had a long-standing back and forth with West African cocoa farmers, where 75% of the world's cocoa comes from. And I won't act like I fully understand all the details and history of this, but it's basically the sellers trying to earn a decent living and the buyers trying to get the cheapest price possible. But in addition to that, weather-related issues have impacted cocoa crop yields, which means less supply is available, so higher prices happen. Now, people are talking about how El Nino, which is a term that I hadn't actually heard in a while, is causing drier temperatures in West Africa, and some predict that it's going to be an ongoing problem as weather patterns are changing. And again, I'm not going to act like I'm an expert in this arena either, or to know how true or not true that is, but what I do know is that Hershey's ability to get cocoa at decent prices has more uncertainty now than it did before. So any issues related to costs, especially around cocoa, at least so far, are getting quite a bit worse as opposed to getting better. And it seems that these problems are continuing to get worse, causing an all-time high spike in cocoa prices. And this was part of my concern last month. It's the uncertainty around the situation that makes it hard to know when or if it's going to get better. I talked about it again in my newsletter a couple weeks ago, just kind of joking that it was the new Bitcoin, but now it keeps going up and is capturing more and more attention from the likes of CNBC, Bloomberg, Reuters, and even the Wall Street Journal. And I remember reading a few comments on that Hershey video of people who were going to continue to hold because they felt like the cocoa prices would eventually come down. And in general, I agree with that. I mean, something goes up like that, you just assume at some point it's going to come down. I mean, it has to, right? But my question for those type of things is, but why? Like, what's going to be the catalyst for it to come down? Because right now, all the signs are pointing to it continuing to go up. And I think this is a good general lesson for us as investors of just trying not to assume that something's going to happen just because we think it's due. And what I mean by that, for example, is just because a stock is down 30% or 50% or 80%, it doesn't mean that it's due to come back up. Or just because a stock is up over 50% or 200% doesn't necessarily mean that it's due to come back down. We still have to look at the details of the situation and make an educated guess as to why. Like, what are the catalysts to that change actually happening, and how likely are they? Now, in terms of cocoa prices and what it means for us as investors, obviously, if you're holding a company like Hershey, then you're impacted. But it's only been about a month since I sold that position. That's not a very long period of time. So a lot of people said they were going to continue to hold over the long term, and that's fine. It makes perfect sense. That's part of what makes investing interesting, because we can have different opinions and take different approaches. Now, for me personally, I think it at least validates some of the concerns that I had about a month ago, but the real test for Hershey's is going to be in their next earnings call, or maybe their next couple earnings calls, because then they'll be able to answer questions like, is it actually impacting their earnings or their cash flow? Are they still able to offset with higher prices and or packaging? And I'm not sure about their lead time with their cocoa acquisition and uses, but will the rising cocoa prices significantly impact their future guidance and expectations? Because we know that the market tends to punish stocks when that happens. And obviously, since I sold my position, I don't really have any more skin in the game in the Hershey story, but it is fascinating to kind of follow it and just see kind of where it goes. And part of it is we do research on these stocks, and when you have an idea of what's going to happen and then it starts to play out a little bit, it's kind of fun, and it's exciting to follow to see where it ultimately ends up. But other than that, I did try to look to see if there was some kind of cocoa ETF or something that I could buy, but I couldn't find anything that I could easily buy to my Schwab accounts. Now, maybe I should have looked at cocoa futures or something, but it seemed to be a little more complicated than I wanted to dig into. Which, looking at the price of cocoa futures now, was probably a big mistake on my part. So forget AI, the future's cocoa. Who knew, right? Oh, let me show you guys something. I have one of these here, which I don't know if you know what to call that, but nowadays we call that reckless spending. Forget Lambos and Ferraris and all this type of stuff. The real flex is a full-size Hershey bar. Okay, it's not a king-size bar, but I'm still working on my goals. So up next, Apple was in the news last week when it announced that they were planning on using Google Gemini for future AI features in the iPhone. And as you can expect with anything related to Apple online, people had totally normal and reasonable responses. With comments like, Apple's so weak, no way they have their entire Gen AI strategy tied up in Google, and this is like them giving up on AI. It's an unsound business decision. Now, first off, not very much information was even released. All that was said was the two tech giants are in talks to let Apple license Google's AI model Gemini to power some new features which would come to the iPhone software in 2024. And while obviously I think people overreacted assuming that Apple's just giving up altogether, I think it's going to be way more nuanced than that. My assumption is that Apple still plans to use their own model, but specifically for the things that they have native to your phone that others won't have. Your location data, your health data, your calendar, your call history, your preferences, because they can use that to make an extremely personalized AI type of assistant that knows you better than anyone else. And I think Apple's in a unique position to be able to do that. Plus, it kind of fits with their whole privacy focus of, hey, I have a personalized model that's on your phone and it's not in some big, broad LLM out in the cloud somewhere. And there's been others online that are talking about this possibility as well. So what that would mean is that for everything else that's not personalized to you, that's this kind of broad search-based AI. And that's where I envision they would use Google's Gemini. Just like how search works on your iPhone today. You search for something, it looks through your apps, your email, your calendar, and then directs you to Google if that's what you want. And I expect that the AI partnership's going to be very similar to that. And when we follow that up with the news that they're planning to use Baidu's model in China, to me, this is actually showing that Apple is thinking through this a little bit better. Because I'm assuming that Google's model is probably not going to be allowed to be used in China. So this is Apple building their partnerships with Baidu, with Google, to be able to provide some just general AI features with the idea that they'll still use their personalized AI stuff that they're going to build themselves and be able to use that across geographic regions. And to me, if that's actually their plan, I think it makes perfect sense. Like, why should Apple compete in a broad search LLM? They don't compete in search today. Now, obviously, we won't know if that's actually what Apple's planning until they announce it, and most people believe that'll be in June at their developer conference, but we'll just have to see. All right, so Jensen Huang is the CEO of Nvidia, and other than his company being one of the hottest stocks in the market, he also made some news about his comments at a recent talk he did at Stanford. So let's listen to this clip.
One of my great advantages is that I have very low expectations. and I mean that. Most of the Stanford graduates have very high expectations. You deserve to have high expectations because you came from a great school. You were very successful. You're top of your class. Obviously, you were able to pay for tuition. And then you're graduating from one of the finest institutions on the planet. You're surrounded by other kids that are just incredible. You naturally have very high expectations. People with very high expectations have very low resilience. And unfortunately, resilience matters in success. I don't know how to teach it to you except for I hope suffering happens to you. And I was fortunate that I grew up with my parents providing a condition for us to be successful on the one hand, but there were plenty of opportunities for setbacks and suffering. And to this day, I use the phrase pain and suffering inside our company with great glee. And I mean that. Boy, this is going to cause a lot of pain and suffering. And I mean that in a happy way, because you want to refine the character of your company. You want greatness out of them. And greatness is not intelligence. Greatness comes from character, and character is informed out of smart people. It's formed out of people who suffered. And so and so if I could wish upon you, I don't know how to do it. For all of you Stanford students, I wish upon you ample doses of pain and suffering.
Now, of course, people had very different reactions to this clip. Now, I personally loved it, and it's just because I really relate to it in things that have happened in my own life. When I was unemployed and I had no money, it was a very different perspective for me, and I had very little expectations at that time. And my wife and I talk about it a lot, where when we started together, we were in a very different place. And now that things have gotten better, we still remember what it felt like to be in that place, and I at least think it's kind of helped keep us grounded. I think about who I was before my dad passed away compared to who I became after. Like, he's been gone 11, almost 12 years now. And, my perspective on life, my maturity level, like all those things are drastically different. And it's, that pain almost shaped my adult life. So I definitely get it. It's just something that really resonated with me. I thought it was cool, and then thought I'd share it with you guys. Now, does that mean that Nvidia is going to double or triple from here? I don't know, and no one knows, but I do like the mindset and the willingness to speak truth to young people, just because I feel like we don't do enough of that these days. All right, so if you made it this far in the video, I have a couple announcements for you, and let me just look at my notes here. First, Seeking Alpha is having a 25% off sale starting today, March 27th, and it's running until April 3rd. So basically, you'll get 25% off the first year of the premium plan. And if you're interested in trying it out, you were maybe waiting for a sale, then it might be a good time. Now, obviously, I use Seeking Alpha. You guys see it in all my videos. It shows up quite a bit. Plus, I am an affiliate of Seeking Alpha. So if you're interested in trying it out and you use my affiliate link, then it helps the channel at no additional cost to you, full transparency. So I'll put that link down in the description. And then if you want to know what's actually included in Seeking Alpha Premium, I did a whole in-depth review about it. So I'll put that link down there as well. And lastly, I've resisted doing this for quite a while, but actually started a Discord group. Now, you guys probably noticed that I like to respond in comments in my videos just to have a little bit of back and forth and talk about ideas, but there's a lot going on in the markets on a day-to-day basis, and having 2 or 3 videos a week just, isn't going to catch everything. So the Discord group would be a nice place to be able to talk about what's going on, whether it's stocks, ETFs, or just financial news, and just a place to kind of hang out with like-minded people. Now, it is going to be a paid membership, which I know not everyone's going to appreciate, but it's priced at just $5 a month, so about the cost of a cup of coffee each month, and I'm going to be adding new things to it over time. As of right now, there's just a few of us in there as we're just getting started, but if you're interested, I'm going to put the link down in the description, and let me know if you have any questions in the comments. So what do you guys think about these videos where we talk about more topics, but for shorter amounts of time? I don't think I've done one in a while, so let me know down in the comments below. Now, if you want to hear my long-term view of Apple and their current struggles, click on this video right here. Hope you guys have a great day out there. Financial independence is true freedom, so keep building and stacking wins, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.